BIM 2.0 race is well underway. And here at the ATM podcast, we're going to be hosting a lot of the founders and companies that are currently in the BIM 2.0 race. And today we've got Rob Asher from Giraffe Technologies and their platform Giraffe. Rob and his team have been creating this really incredible platform, actually, and you'll see in the podcast, you'll learn a little bit more about what they're doing. It's not just a tool for architects to use, it's a tool that all these different stakeholders in the entire construction process, from local governments all the way to contractors, structural engineers, architects, to essentially create a city builder tool. You know, you can go potentially take a plot, see what zoning you're allowed to do in, create a design, add the structure to it, all of these things. So you may think of Giraffe as a feasibility tool, but as you'll find out in the episode, it's much more of a city building tool, an end-to-end solution built on some really incredible technology. So we're going to be talking to Rob about all of this, his background as an architect and transitioning into a technology startup entrepreneur founder. Also the technology they've built some really incredible tools. They've actually built their own version of Grasshopper in the background, so you can create your own scripts, and Giraffe becomes a marketplace for you to share these scripts, which is really cool. And of course, we'll touch on the influence of AI and some of the other BIM 2.0 players and where Giraffe differentiates itself, and also why it's called Giraffe. As always, if you like this episode, just simply hit that like and subscribe button. It's a stupid free little button, but it helps us grow the channel. Thank you, as we've just hit 25,000 subscribers. The bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests on. And so thank you for this continued support. And so without any further ado, let's jump into it and have a chat with Rob. All right, Rob, that's it. We're live. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I think this is our first one actually from Australia, from the other side of the world, actually. I just literally, as we're coming online, I was like, we haven't done one before.
Yeah. I guess there'd be some from the Southern Hemisphere, maybe Singapore. Maybe.
Yeah, we haven't done that. We haven't done that many. I think you're the first.
Southern Hemisphere. That's even stronger. Yeah, great.
And first from Australia.
Yeah.
We'll actually get a couple others from Australia who are building some other things. But it's good to have you on.
Yeah. No, it's good to be on, even though it's evening time here. And the challenge for an Australian business, obviously, is to cross the mighty oceans. Either to America or Europe. So it's not easy, but yeah.
That is tricky. And, for those of you who are listening that came to PetroCuture, they will have met you virtually.
Yeah.
Because you recorded us a presentation, because PetroCuture here is at like sort of 3 a.m. or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have that much motivation. I couldn't do it. Yeah.
But no, it's interesting times. Obviously, this part of the BIM 2.0 race is on, and people are really excited. Obviously, we just had this video that we released that shows there's a huge interest in BIM 2.0 and all these companies. So we're naturally getting the founders on and the people behind it to kind of share a bit more of your story of how you created Giraffe and all that kind of stuff. I was curious, maybe we'll start with like the origin stories of you, and then the origin stories of Giraffe. I'm always curious the backgrounds of these founders of, all these cool tech companies that are coming out of the BIM 2.0 genre.
Yeah.
But your background, you're an architect, right? You studied architecture. I see you were kind of a computational specialist and R&D specialist as well, right? Maybe just explain that and kind of how you got to Giraffe.
Yeah, sure. So I came out of school and I didn't know what to do. So I did architecture, and then I stopped and I did mathematics and philosophy. So I did a major in maths and philosophy. And then I was like, finished those. And I was like, oh, no, now I need a job. So I went back and finished architecture. And that was like a lucky, happy accident, because I kind of joined the profession, it would have been about 2010, maybe 2011. And I went into a design firm. In my first 6 months, I was doing, like ceiling plans and putting smoke detectors. It was like pure hell, and I almost left. But then Grasshopper came out, and I ended up getting onto design competitions and doing this complex geometry stuff, which was basically my maths degree, brought across, because you do a bit of programming when you do a maths degree. And so I was very lucky, right? That sort of computerization of architecture and programming and me kind of arrived at the same time. So I remember I actually did generative components first, which was this Robert Aish. I think his name was Robert Aish, and he was like from the Foster's ADG, and it was like this. And I taught it myself. Like our holidays, our summer holidays is Christmas. One Christmas summer holidays, and I like my mind. I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then I got back into the office. We couldn't install that because we were a Mac office. Somehow managed to get someone to give me a Rhino license, and then the rest is sort of history. So I did 5 years of design using Grasshopper, kind of swoopy, swirly, complex geometry, like fabrication stuff, right? Origami patterns and just the classics, and then I moved firm, and I became eventually an associate at Cox. I was very client-facing, and as I became an associate, I sort of was a technologist at heart, but I wasn't a technologist, as in I preferred the business, like going to a client, talking to them about a design, getting them to trust you with money, and the design becomes, it's more and more the plan is the master. Do you know what I mean? Like the problems that the clients have is, it's not really computational geometry. Like that's sexy as, it's great, but really you're trying to solve this kind of problem that's somewhere between policy and program and brief and cash. And I was moving up the levels of abstraction, I guess, more into master planning, urban planning, even strategic planning, where you're looking at blobs of city and saying, well, what if we do increased housing over there and put a train line over there? What does it do to travel times? Which are susceptible to the same kinds of computational processes. Like it's all just maths under the hood, but it's less geometric. It's more systemic. And so at some point, I kind of zoomed out to strategic planning, and then I was like, well, now I just want to zoom out to the meta and actually look at the system of design and build this tool to help designers do design and kind of step outside of the profession and contribute in that way. And that's sort of how Giraffe started. And I had this crew, like Lucy Booth, who's my co-founder. She was a strategic planner. And I kind of worked with her, for her, as the computational offsider, as I was trying to get my head around. I was kind of doing an internship in strategic planning. And then my brother came on, both my brothers came on as CTOs, basically, and hired one of my really good friends that I lived with for a while in uni, came in as the first salesperson, and off we went. So it was sort of like a work with people you like, and family, friends, just everybody, and then try and build this tool that, I guess, again, just lucky. Like we started sort of doing it part time in 2018, 2019, and then we went full time in 2020. And again, it was like a very nice time. There was Autodesk Forma, ArchiStar from Australia, actually, which is another classic Australian kind of computational design success story. There was Hyper. So there was, I wouldn't say the BIM 2 maturity that we are now, but there was certainly TestFit obviously was out already, had been out for a while. Right. So there was there was a movement, there was something happening. So yeah, it was, again, like the wave was there to a degree.
Yeah. Was starting in 2020, was like COVID a part of that? Like you guys were... No, so
we started January. We went through a startup accelerator called StartMate, which is kind of like the Australian Y Combinator, which gave us 3 months of cash, whatever it was. And COVID hit in April, and we just went home and worked from home, and basically never, like, we've got an office now, but we're still a very remote business. Yeah. Because we were founded in COVID. And I don't think we would have survived without COVID, because there was a bunch of incentives and the government department, our customers are government, architects, developers, and there was this big wave of like stimulus and cash flow relief, and like there's all those policies, because they were locking down the economy, and then they were trying to keep businesses alive. And so it acted as like a little bridge for us. And the government was trying to like figure out what do they do to the economy? It becomes a huge planning problem. Like, do they stop working? So we were able to find customers in that space in a really interesting way, which probably on reflection helped us.
Yeah. Sounds like the kind of stars aligned that time. Yeah. I mean, actually, we started ATN exactly around that time.
Did you? Yeah. Well, and what was
more 2021, I guess. It was like we'd gone through COVID, but then still working from home and all this kind of stuff. But Yeah, that's where all the magic happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like the positive of that time was it allowed the world to imagine another reality in a way that it would never have happened. Do you know what I mean? It's like, can we work from home? Actually, we can. And I know it's kind of like now drifting back to mean, but it opened a space, like an imaginative space that I think was really cool. Then everyone got into Bitcoin, and do you know what I mean? It became like it was like there was some parts of it that were not cool, but there were some really cool parts. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like remember the monkey pictures, the NFTs. Like it was like crazy.
The apes.
Yeah, the apes. That's it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, are now not worth as much.
No, yeah. I'm not smart enough to buy high, sell low. Whatever. I took the other way. Like, it was very hypey, but it was.
If you got Bitcoin, you're pretty quids in.
You're still sweet. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. But no, that's interesting. And I'm curious about your brothers. Are they in the technology space or?
Yeah. So both of them were. Yeah. I mean, we come from a very mathematical family. Like my dad's an actuary, and so there's three brothers, and all of us are relatively mathematical. I'm probably the artsy one. And I did a maths degree. So the other two are much more. So they were mechatronic engineer and the other's a computational mathematician. Like did a PhD in groundwater modeling or using the supercomputer to predict the way water moves through the earth or, something very deep, which is super helpful because then, I don't know, the power of mathematics to create systems. It's just such a good grounding in maths is... amazing thing.
I was looking at that on your LinkedIn, your background. I was like, that was quite interesting. Maths and philosophy you initially studied, right? And then you went to architecture. Yeah. So I was like, you're kind of a ideal computational designer in there.
I was so lucky. That's honestly, and I didn't make that connection. There had no element of strategy there, and I had no picture of. Like I think Grasshopper was just so cool for the industry, as in it was just such an epic. Injection into the technology space because it was free. You had to buy Rhino, which cost nothing, and it was just so powerful. And the way it integrated programming with geometry in this beautiful sort of left brain, right brain, artsy program. It was awesome. It's like we built like a version of Grasshopper in Giraffe, but it was just, it's the king. Like it's such a great package. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing we'll definitely touch on because I think that's really cool about what you guys have built.
Yeah.
But Grasshopper was like an epic time. I like you mentioned generative components as well. Some of our younger audience may not know what that is, but it's like that was the OG. That was the OG.
It was so good. Yeah. It was like almost like not MS DOS, but is way less polished than Grasshopper. Yeah.
It was. I mean, I remember learning it a bit at uni. Because I was obsessed with a company called Future Systems that are now Amanda Leverett. You would know them like very blob architecture.
Yes.
If you've ever watched the Ashes at Lord's Cricket Grounds, the media centre is famously designed by Future Systems. But they were like the kind of early computational guys at uni all went to work for Future Systems, and they were all using generative components.
Yeah, and which was more. I think I remember I had to really wrench my brain to think in the way that he thought. Whereas I think David Rutten, maybe because I'd done GC, then Grasshopper was easy, but it was like a paradigm shift. I was like, whoa, yeah.
I remember doing like a 1-day course in it, and I couldn't do anything. It was a tricky program. That's cool. So fast forward today, give us an overview, like what is Giraffe now and what are you trying to solve with Giraffe?
So I would say I'll explain Giraffe the easy way and then the hard way, because it's not an easy answer. I'm very first principles person, like philosophy and maths. Do you know what I mean? It's very abstract. So I'll try and make it concrete. Fundamentally, for architects, Giraffe is map pencil calculator. So it's a mapping application. So you kind of think Google Maps on steroids. Like you see a picture of the world, a map of the world to scale, geolocated, and then you can plug into data layers, all the data layers, like tens of thousands of them, from like boat ramp locations to demographics to slope to zoning in all the markets in the world so that you can understand urban context. Like that's the goal here is understanding the city that you're designing in a very deep and also a very wide way. So Google Maps, and the reason for that is like whenever you do an inception meeting in an architecture office, everyone just looks at the site on Google Maps and you all sit around and there's yellow trace, but you're all looking at Google Maps and like, oh yeah, like what's the nearest cafe? Like where do people see the site from? So we've just taken that to the next level and put data. So it's map. And you can filter and you can style and you can do all this stuff. So it's very powerful mapping application, but context. Then the next is pencil, and probably SketchUp is it's like a sketching tool. You can draw and you draw straight on the map. You don't overlay, you just draw polygons. They're to scale, they're overlaid. And you can make them 3D. So it's just a modeling putty. Do you know what I mean? Like you can draw shapes. And the concept is sketch, like is very much not like construct a grid, set up a levels system like in Revit and get everything right and then start drawing very precisely with, it's just like get the shapes on there, like change them, delete them, stretch them. It's like very early stage ideation concept testing. And then it's a calculator. So you can pull those geometries and you can calculate. So like if you want to know the perimeter of one of the geometries, it's there. If you want to take that perimeter and multiply it by 1 to get the area of a fence 1 meter high, you just do that. Or if you want to say, hey, this polygon represents a swimming pool with an average depth of 1.8, you just do that and then you get the volume of the water. And so all of that sort of like very, like you're on your Google, on your Apple phone, like just doing calculations, or maybe you've got like a scratch spreadsheet that you're just doing stuff on. It does that in the package. So then you've got your picture of the city, you've got your concepts, your diagrams, and you're pulling data out of them and you're doing it in seconds. And so like to get a site, draw a rectangle, pull the rectangle back, add a level, remove a level, all of that just happens in real time. So it's a modeling tool with mapping and calculation on top. So that's the concept, like that's what it is, right, at its core. But it's actually, and this is kind of zooming out and abstracting a little bit, it's actually just data on a database with APIs, which is, it's like the same as the internet. Like Instagram is a database full of photos and likes and users. Giraffe is a database of geometries and projects and usages and da-da. And so it's like this, what did you say, industrial scale data infrastructure, which means that it's the right tool to go end to end on the city making problem. And to me, the city making problem is zooming all the way out, is you have a bucket of money which represents society's ability to get something done. And that money can belong to a developer or a bank or a home buyer or a government agency. And somehow, as a group, we need to convert that money into a building, right? Yeah. And it's going to take this, like you've got designers and financiers and real estate agents and city planners, and you've got and builders and architects and blah, blah, blah. And that long and winding journey is actually just a process, and it's governed by data. And if you have databases and APIs, you can essentially build a digital twin, not of the building, but of that process. And so Giraffe is built to do that. So think, it's hard to find the analogy here. It's very hard. Like I think Autodesk is doing something like this with Autodesk Forge, right, with APIs. Salesforce, I think, is something, but like people don't even really know what you can't buy Salesforce, but Salesforce is a bunch of databases that represent customers, products, and transactions, and then you can do stuff. You can customize it and connect things, and so I think maybe Airtable or some of these AI orchestration platforms you're seeing now, where it's like, it reads your calendars, it like does this, then it sends an email, or da-da-da. Like you're seeing how people are starting to pull bits of data from different systems, integrate them, transform it. And that Giraffe is very much of that, as in thinking about databases. And so what's so profound about that is, if you're a systems thinker, if you're and you like designing processes, Giraffe is like this. It's like this magical substance, kind of like Grasshopper and Rhino. But the problem with Rhino is no one opens Rhino, just Rhino people, right? Rhino is like it's for the art, it's for the the people that understand geometry. Yeah. But a client is not going to open, a city planner won't, or a developer. Whereas Giraffe is very much built for everybody to touch and then interact with the data. So it's like this sort of data orchestration, process orchestration platform.
Yeah.
And actually pitching that, like you can even hear I'm struggling, but like to explain that to someone, it's a long journey.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
map pencil calculator, like that's what you get. It's good, for the $45. That's like the core.
Yeah. No, it's it makes a lot of sense as you say it. And so I think one of the questions, like we were talking off camera, was who do you find using this more? Because you actually, you got developers, you said, you got like government people as well as architects. Mm-hmm. So the way you kind of describe it is like, are all these people in Giraffe kind of having a three-dimensional conversation about projects or what could happen in the city?
Like, kind of. That's the end state that we think will happen. And more than people having a conversation, it's actually going to be machines having a conversation. This is where it's going, right? Like, so say I'm a structural engineer and I know the equations around, if you give me a lump that represents a building, I can run it through my system and I can tell you the steel tonnage. And I can give you even the span tables, and I can tell you where to place your columns and how to optimize against wind and all of this stuff. I actually, as a human designer, don't need to interface with you. I can just say, hey, you send me your geometry. Don't send it to me, send it to my machine. My machine will run the calculation and just give you the answer straight back. And then there's another machine that's maybe representing the government's process of approving or assessing this geometry. So it'll come in and it'll say, hey, this geometry is within the setbacks, and it's within the height plan. And that's just a computational tick, 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 tick. The computer just does it. So now you suddenly start seeing these different systems are talking to each other and they're just working, right? And there's it's fundamentally different. It's like the assembly line, like I think people think of architects, like they get a lump of stone and they chisel it to LOD2, and then they chisel it some more and it's LOD3, then they chisel it some more and finally it's LOD6, right? But it's not actually like that. It's like it's production lines and automated systems, and no one's chiseling. The machines are chiseling, right? That's how cars are made. No one's screwing your iPhone together there are some processes where they're screwing by hand, but no one's placing the pixels on the OLED screen by hand, right? That's machines doing that. And same with buildings, actually. And same with the white collar, like the mental work to do the buildings. Like, I don't think anyone should ever place a mullion by hand for a facade. It's insane. You should say, hey, here's my facade. Here's the rules by which to place the mullions. Done. Then the machine does it. And then it should run all the analysis that should happen by the machine. And so you end up, the designer becomes a bit meta, as in they are watching the process happen. They're designing the process, but they're not actually doing it by hand themselves.
Yeah.
And so then it's less people talking to each other and it's more systems talking to each other. Now, there still are people, like human in the loops, because ultimately cities are for people. And I think design remains very subjective and very human, but more and more systems. And we're seeing this everywhere. So like the government, like a planning authority will be saying, hey, I would love to just publish out my data as a digital feed so you guys can ingest it digitally, run algorithms on it, and at scale find sites that you can develop, because that means you'll develop more and you'll develop quicker, and that solves me as a government's problem to like try and encourage housing. And then for a capital deployer, they're like, I want to find lots of sites and assess them automatically so that I can deploy capital easily. And for an architect, it's like, what can I automate? Where do I need to stay in there? And for an engineer or for a supply chain person, you can see how it's all going towards digital. And I think that's that sort of ecosystem. It's a 3D world. It's all shared, but it's actually a data model that's designed from the top to look very human, but from the bottom to look very machine. It's all about the APIs and the machine sort of.
Yeah. So as you're describing it, there's I've been in the housing world for a little bit over the last 18 months with Facet, and maybe a good example to kind of use as an example project to walk through is we were looking at London small plots, they're called. They're like these garage units that have been left over, and councils and developers want to like build houses on them.
And they're tiny and weird, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if they weren't, they would have already been built.
Exactly. So for the Facet building system, it was great because they can they can do custom. But I was like, well, ideally you need a place where you have a map of all these sites. You can kind of find them, right? So
Giraffe, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what you're saying is like, the London local councils could say like, these are the rules of what you can build on there. A company like Facet would maybe have their own system to apply their building system. You could, maybe there's an architect that's come up with scripts for a design, a specific design, and Giraffe is basically putting this all in. Your engineers,
correct, putting it together,
in
correct.
Stuff. So in theory, you could like analyze the plot and come up with a design, and exactly how much it's going to cost, how much materials. A lot quicker than with a traditional process.
Correct, and that's exactly right. And then what's the world that I see, where we were trying to get to, is you actually go to the Greater London Authority and you say, why don't we build a script here which assesses these things automatically? Like, let's analyze what you need, what workflow you go through to assess whether this thing is it sunlight access, is it setbacks, is it whatever it is. We'll program it. Is it hardscape, softscape? It's all quantifiable. And so then you can get to this world where, and then let's go to the sellers, the real estate agents, and let's give them an interface where they can go to a customer and click on a site like, I want to live in wherever it is. I don't know any London suburbs, but by the River Thames. Like click, badum, and then it runs the script for the cost. And then it sends that same volume to the council, gets automatic approval, and then it could even send it through to a logistics. And so you can see how in the future it's going to be assessed immediately, priced and designed. And the architect's job is going to be somehow, I think, integrating that stuff and sitting over the top, and maybe drawing some diagrams for a site. It's like, here's the site. We can either put the entrance like this and value privacy, or we can face this thing to the sun and do it like this way. Which do you choose? And that's a very architectural design thing. Yeah. But then all those processes will be orchestrated, and it's very systems level, as in we're addressing the government, the approvals authority, the factories, the supply chain, the sales process, the developer, the financier. Because the same thing could go up to the bank, right? Because for you to get a loan, the bank literally looks, where is this house? What are the risks? How many people default near of it? Which has the builder built any other houses? What's the risk? It's just all checklists, which should be are actually done by a computer. They actually are, but it should just be done by. And so you could then get this thing financed and purchased and designed and approved, and almost the factory starts to kick off and half manufacture it like in a second. Like, I don't understand why it doesn't take more than 10 minutes. And so, but you really need to zoom out and look at the whole thing and every player and understand, like conveyancing, like, hey, I need to get title of this property. I need to take it from this person to this person, give the bank the mortgage, register that mortgage on the land. There's all these bits, but they should all be in a shared fabric. And why do you do that? Is because I think that is our planet. Like, we live in an industrial planet. And I think it's, as designers, we should take that seriously. We should not pretend we're making cathedrals by hand, chipping rocks. We should try and synthesize these industrial systems into something beautiful. As in, how do we make them serve us and not us serve them? Because it's very easy to become, you're just building freeways everywhere, and then like you live in this like inhuman hellscape, and you're like, what's going on? And it's because we haven't like integrated those systems in a human way. So our mission is to try and integrate them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I think even at a very simplified level of that, like somewhere where you go and you have like zoning and, you can actually analyze the finances of a potential site and that kind of stuff. Yeah. That would be really powerful. I don't think it exists. The only thing remotely even close, I think, in London is there's this platform called View City or something.
View.city. Yeah.
But it just shows planning applications and what's coming up. Like, I think, like my understanding of the platform was very, it's around like a high fidelity geometric representation of the city. Yeah, and exactly. For views, etc. And literally, which makes a lot of sense in core assets. This is when you think about the systems in the the urban cores, where like you're selling a square meter of living room for like £100,000. You want absolute precision on the site, because if you get wrong, it costs you $100,000 just for like a little wrong. Whereas outside in the non-core areas where the bulk of housing is delivered, where the bulk of people live, etc.,
it's less relevant. You're like, oh, I'm a meter out, doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's $2,000 or something like that. So it's all around balancing precision and speed and fidelity and thinking systemically, like what's actually going to move the needle. So I don't think something like Giraffe exists. Hyper, I think, is probably, well, I think Hyper is conceptually very close, where Hyper, I think, take very seriously APIs, and they're thinking around how is design automated and then into APIs, into processes, and then how are those processes orchestrated. So they're also they're a platform to speak to machines, which we are as well. But I think we're very top level, where we're not just talking to the AEC sector. We're actually, I don't know, it's like a very high level view on what property development, or what real estate or AEC is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's zoning, and sometimes it's, do you know what I mean?
You're touching on like city building, like that high level.
That's right. And then I always say that, I'd say, well, it's for city building. And people are like, what are you even talking about? Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you see it? Like, I know there's a lot of conversation. I see a lot of these BIM 2.0 companies are kind of, there's a gravitation towards feasibility, like find a site, analyze it. I know you don't exactly class yourself as a focus on feasibility, because you're thinking it's a much bigger thing. But how do you see Giraffe? Do you see it focusing more in that early stage, like that big decision making with the government, with the key stakeholders and all that kind of stuff? But do you see it getting further down the line, like it becomes a documentation tool? Dare I say?
Yeah.
Challenge the giants of Revit.
So I have like very strong opinions on this, but and I'm trying to think about how to frame this. So we are certainly not a feasibility tool. We're a tool for masters of design. And what I mean by that, if you think about an architectural firm today, you have Foster himself, or Zaha, or Frank Lloyd Wright, and then you have an army under them of delivery people.
Yeah.
And most of what the master architect does, right, is just draw blobs, FISO-looking blobs. As in, they get the master plan, they get the principles right. Now, sometimes you get exceptional architects who think in terms of fine detail and geometric systems, etc. So they're kind of doing both. Yeah. But a lot of what they're doing is the big moves, because those are the most consequential moves. And once those moves are made, the rest is, I'm not going to say filling out the details, but there's far less. Do you know what I mean? And this is where people get patented their entire firm, like they do a Zaha building, right? Or they do like you can see they develop a language and a process by which, and so obviously some architects are always like keeping it fresh, like a Gary, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to, but a lot of it is. And so I think that detailed work, like your design director, and then your associates and your documentation experts and your BIM man, all that structure, those team, I think that is going to be increasingly done by the computer, because I think a lot of that is susceptible to rules-based work. So I have a facade, let's analyze the north, let's take a language, get the louvers right, look at like even the LLMs, like read a photo, create something in the style of that photo, look at the doc, that is all, sort of hate to say it, but very automated. It's susceptible to automation. And when I was working as an architectural designer, never registered, so don't sue. But when I was doing that, I had a whole bunch of scripts, and I never had like a big team as an associate, because I had like 200, what do they call it? Clusters. I had 200 clusters in Giraffe. I had a core cluster and stairs and like 20 or 30 facade cluster, like make balconies like this, do it like that, blah, blah, blah. And I would just orchestrate these things. I'd be like, okay, we're going to do a building. We're going to do V-shaped columns at the bottom, drag in the V-shaped column cluster. Then we're going to do a core that's like two like this. So I'll drag in that cluster, blah, 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 blah. And I get this like LOD 6, whatever, LOD 500, like a highly detailed model.
Yeah.
And the computer did all of it. And all I drew in Rhino were just polylines, which kind of conducted. I'd be, here's my input, shape the building like this. And then the computer did everything. And so I think Giraffe very much looks like a feasibility tool, but it's actually an orchestration tool. And so it's the magic with this is because the user doesn't do that much, there's much less buttons. Like you don't have a copy, paste, rotate the button because the computer's going to copy, like the human never makes an array, for example. The computer always makes the array according to rules. Like why would you make an array? It's a waste of your time. Like just give the line to the computer and say, make an array. Like it does it perfectly. And so it looks simple. It looks like feasibility, but actually it's around orchestration. And when you understand that, like that the computer can do so much, and as you invest in those scripts, it does more, it actually shocks you how much more and more and more it does, then I think you understand Giraffe really clearly. And I think that's where, and other people see that as well. Like I think Forma, I think that's where they're going as well. I mean, that's opinion. I don't know for a fact. But platforms like Cope that are taking kind of a simple input and then panelizing it according to this really complex set of rules, which they've gone and spoken to the supply chain about. And then they sort of bring that complexity digitally upstream. I think that's an example exactly of what I'm talking about, where you give it a fat wall, an RFC wall, and you get back like this mega complex geometry with all the screws and everything, but you haven't done anything. You've just said to the computer, hey, do this. Does that make sense? Like it's sort of like a...
Totally.
It's like almost feasibility, but it's actually a bit different or very different.
Well, it has the process to like go and add in all the little details so you do have that LOD.
And that's right. And that's why Giraffe, if you look at you draw a blob in Giraffe, it looks like SketchUp, but then we have the scripting engine where you can like grab that blob and you can just start doing stuff to it. Just subdivide it, add mullions, add detail, add louvers, find the north-facing facade, like make that like all this sort of stuff.
Do you see it as a marketplace as well for these scripts?
Yeah.
Like say if I create a script, all these facades, I can put it up and people can use it.
100%. And actually, the reason I'm not just in Rhino, Rhino is better at geometry than Giraffe by far, right? But where Rhino is not focused on is this distribution where you make a Grasshopper script, you share it with someone else, it will never work the way you thought, right? Because there'll be an out-of-date plugin and, Like I open my old scripts every now and then and they're broken, right? Whereas Giraffe is built on, and back to that, what I was saying at the start, it's on internet technology, it's on databases and using JavaScript in the browser precisely for distribution. That's the problem we're trying to solve. Like, how do you get a script from A to B and get it used? Because you want to systemically automate. You don't want these like champions, these computational design specialists that are living in their own island. You want to systematize algorithms, basically. Yeah. And so, so the marketplace is 100% where we're going, which is, I think, very similar to Hyper. And I think Forma, you can buy algorithms like, I think, test fits like car park algorithms on there and ArchiStar. So it's not new. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not geniuses, but I think the way that we're thinking about it, I think we're doing it in a very interesting way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Hyper definitely started off in that world, and I know it's still there. Yeah. And now they're focused a little bit on space planning, but I think all that infrastructure for these, it is exactly that in a way. Like, they're just scripts in the background.
I'll tell you one philosophical thing that we have, which I think also differentiates, is we're very, I'd say, like methodologically humble, where we are GeoJSON in 3JS. That's what we are. We're not pretending to be anything else. Like, often you see, I'm not going to name names here, but you'll open up a package and you'll see a 3D rendering and it's got its own like customary, like whatever, bespoke, proprietary. But it's not actually, it's just a reskin of an open source package and then like closed down. And you're like, why? Why bother? Like, honestly, it's annoying, right? So we've stayed very open. And so we have absolutely no opinion on the APIs. Like if you use Rust or C# or Revit Forge or whatever the Bentley version is, or you write your own, we're very close to the metal in the sense it's just data up and down the wire, and we store that data as human readable JSON because why would you do anything else? And so we try to stay and that's very like like copy left, open internet kind of thinking. We're not an open source because we have to like feed the kids, but we're definitely open data. Do you know what I mean? As in there's no... We try to put as few artificial barriers between the user and the actual infrastructure they're using as possible. So if you learn Giraffe, you actually learn internet. Do you know what? You actually understand it's just APIs posting data up and down using open source formats, and we're built on these packages. So we try and keep it open because we don't want to live in a world where, as this thing systematizes, you want an ecosystem of players. Like you want lots of structural engineers with APIs, for example. Do you know what I mean? You want to keep it alive and kicking, or else it'll become monotonous and sort of monopolistic and strange. So I don't know where that sits, and I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't heard other people talk about that, but that's something we've definitely self-consciously pursued.
I guess Speckle are the kind of flying the flag for open source, but it's a business that makes money. I wonder. I don't know quite know how they do it. Is it like a freemium, like you can self-host or you pay for them to host? That's quite a common model. Don't quote me on exactly how it works.
The business model.
I think there's a free element. There's an enterprise level where it's like, you want to start creating stuff bespoke in the cloud. That's when you start paying for it. But from what I understand, like the technology is kind of open. You can actually see how it works, particularly in this world of BIM 2.0 and AI. There's a lot of wrappers of stuff.
It's all wrappers. That's it. And don't So we don't wrap on. I mean, we're just a big Postgres database. Like we're just sitting. So we're trying, and our wrapper tries to be as thin as possible. I think it adds a lot of value. I think people underestimate how hard good interface is to build, and that's what we charge for. Like we're making this like beautiful interface, but under the hood, it's just simple. It's data up and down, and I think that's the future. I think because we've got this SDK, for example, right? So we've got this JavaScript SDK where you can basically build any web app, and you can plug it into Giraffe, and then that web app can drive Giraffe. So you can say, hey, create a layer, create a rectangle according to my logic, turn it blue, delete it, whatever, select it for the user, all of that sort of stuff, which is crazy, right? But now the SDK, the AIs mean making these apps is like nothing. So I'll give you an example. The other day, I was building a presentation in Figma, I think, and I needed like a list of random rectangles with random colors. And I was like, I needed like 300. I'm not doing that. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, write me an SDK, like an app. Here's my Giraffe SDK documentation that turns GeoJSON into SVG. And that's super well documented because it's an open format. So ChatGPT just does it. And then in Giraffe, I built a little flow that made like a random colored set of rectangles. And it just worked. And then I copy pasted it into Figma. And I was like, man, what a crazy workflow. And it's right. It's like the AI as a way to deal with the software is crazy. It's crazy. Like it literally took me 20 minutes to build that little micro application, that exact feature that I wanted. Whereas remember the old days, you'd be like, I hope they do SVG support in Revit 2022, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was. You're like holding out. Whereas now you're like, I want that feature, I'll roll that feature. Especially if the data is kind of transparent to you and you can sort of see what's going on, which is epic.
What about, do you see yourself, I'm not sure if it does already or will do, but like, will you play with the Rhino and the Revits and like existing?
Oh yeah, we do as much as possible. So we built like an IFC.
Bring in a massing or something. Or
so I would say like my challenge, and I would like love people to know if people are working on this. This is part of the problem being I'm not in the community so much, right? Like as in if I was in London at the Pachacucha, I could have asked people, but I'm just sending a video. But so like getting like we use GLB as a 3D format, which is like the JPEG of 3D. And so if you get GLB out, it's perfect. And I'm just don't know who's supporting GLB at the minute. I know you can get it out of Rhino. So we support like 3ds and OBJ, kind of all the well-known formats. And then I often use 3 libraries to like sort of go from one to the other. So we write out text, like literally a giraffe geometry is like, here's the polygon, here's XY, 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 that's the list. So to create like a Dynamo script to bring it in or plug in, it's like so easy. We've got a Speckle connector. We built a Speckle connector. So we're very much of the view that it's got to interact. And I was like feeling for the architects yesterday, where I was like, it's a struggle for us to sell to architects. Like that's our challenge. We're like, how do we communicate this whole wedge of concepts to them? It's kind of crazy. Yeah. But it's a challenge for them because they've got to buy all the software, and they're like, oh my goodness, there's 58 of you people, and like you're all doing the same thing. Like, what do I buy? And so I do think they'll end up buying a lot of things. And I think, you'll have some Revit, you'll have some Rhino, you'll have some Adobe, you'll have some Giraffe, you'll have some Snaptrude, you'll have Arcol, you know what I mean? And I think if you see your job as orchestrating data, then these tools actually look much more similar than they look different. Do you know, you can kind of say, oh, actually, I get what's going on here. This is just wrappers on, this is just variations on a theme. It's all music. Do you know what I mean?
I'm assuming in this BIM 2.0 race, a lot of these companies will merge or combine, and maybe they'll merge into one thing. I think people are already a little bit worried that all of these things are going to be required. So you got all these different licenses, and you still got the Rhino and the Revits and that kind of thing.
And the big dog, yeah. I mean, I added up all the license prices that I could see, and I think you can buy all the BIM 2.0 challenges for less than like one of the big ones. You can get Rayon and Arcol and everything. Yeah, now. Well, that's the thing, right? And that's also a legitimate, and then they start cranking the price.
They're all VC backs, so
not us. So we've raised capital, but we only raised capital 4 years in, and we raised it specifically from non-institutional investors.
Okay.
So and that's because for us VC, the cycle, like this, the complexity of this vision that I'm trying to explain to you, and I haven't been successful in explaining it to VC, so it's not them, it's me, but it's just such a big, slow, systemic thing that we're trying to do here, that the return profile that they need to have, because they have like a 7-year fund or whatever, so they need to make an investment and they need to pull money out within 7 years. I think this journey that we're on may be longer than 7 years, right? So I think we'll make some returns to our investors we want to, but it's a slightly different. There's just a different alignment. So we've sort of tried to, and maybe there could be VCs. I'm not the smartest startup CEO in the world, but I think I think AEC is slow and complicated, and it takes a long time to cook.
I came across that as well. With like when I was at Facet doing the modular housing side, there's even AEC VCs, but they still really just want to invest in some website that's going to go. Like I'm not going to name companies, but I've seen a company recently raised over £4 million on a seed round for what I think looks like a stable wrapper for AI.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, what? That makes no sense. But then, a company that's going to be revolutionize housing, that takes time, and
it takes time.
You're building physical stuff. People get a little bit worried about that. So I think it's the same kind of thing as like AEC is not a website that you're going to build and scale and then sell.
No. And that's why we did that. The first 4 years, we kind of incubated without and then it was appropriate, I think, for us to take, because we wanted to, we've hired like a marketing guy in the US and expanded the team, and that sort of, but it took time. And I hear exactly what you're saying. And again, I feel for the VCs because it's such a deep sector. I have a maths degree and I worked in it for like a decade, and I understand a little bit about it. Right. Imagine getting all these pitches and there's AI happening and just trying to figure out where to deploy the capital. It's not an easy job. There's so much noise.
There's so much opportunity. There's like such a big industry that is so far behind the curve.
That's what I think. I think there is massive opportunity, and the people we're super excited to talk to is when they have a nascent system thinking and they go, I'm trying to do this thing, right? I've got this vision of a firm that is tech-enabled, properly tech-enabled, not like I have a BIM manager that's like managing like some good Revit families, but I'm like literally tech first. Then Giraffe it's a great time to be alive for that firm, because you've got your AIs, you've got tools like us, you've got the internet, and you can absolutely nuke the competition. Like, it is insane what you can do now, which is super exciting.
That's one of the questions I want to ask you is to double click, put your entrepreneur startup hat on, and like what have you learnt being an architect to now being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, and actually maybe just rewind and recap because you touched on parts of it. You kind of initially went on what's it called, like a startup boot camp, incubator. And then you launched. Did you raise a bit of money, and then now it's mainly through revenue of the thing.
A bit of the opposite. So what we did is we went through the incubator, which was it's like $100,000 safe note, so very similar to Y Combinator, and then we bootstrapped from there through COVID. So there was it was 2020, 2021, 2022, and then we raised money at the end of last year from non-institutional. And we retained as management or as the founders the vast majority of the business. Yeah. And that's, I think, what would I say? Like, what about my experience could help someone who's thinking about doing, I don't know. I would say it's very, very hard, as in it's extremely, it's hectic. Like it is a very whole body thing to do to start a business. And I had two twins that were like 2 years old, and I had my youngest, so I was all in, which is crazy. But it was it is fun. It's very engaging, very engrossing. I would say I've always been entrepreneurial, so it sort of was natural. I would say, I think deep expertise is, I'm very risk averse. As in, I really, I don't want to take VC's money that I don't think we could pay back. I didn't want to take investors' money that we're in a great position, we're profitable, we're stable business. So we took, you know what I mean? I like sleeping at night. I don't like that feeling of being like, I need to make a deal or else this, So you I've set the business up, or we've set the business up to cater to our personalities. And so I would advise that. Obviously, stay true to yourself. As stupid as that, that is I think it's, understand how you work and then make it work for you. And then the other thing that again, how we work is we love deep expertise. Like we have gone so deep and we think about things from first principles. And because we can do that, we have done that. So I'm an old founder. Do you know what I mean? I'm like watching all these guys start businesses in their 20s and I'm like, whoa. You guys are machines. I am impressed. Whereas I started in my 30s, and the advantage for me, for my personality type, is I have a great degree of deep knowledge. I've done it. I've sat in the meetings. I've been shouted at. I've been on site. I've been thrown things. I've seen it all, which gives me confidence that what we're building is real. Yeah. Which is important to me because you know what I mean. I think this those are. I don't think those are general principles for entrepreneurs. I think those work for people like me. I think they do work for architects because that consulting background where you are a professional, so you are holding your client's interest and you're holding the interest of the city and you're trying to make something that's truly good and stay somewhat professionally detached, but also very trustworthy and taking that responsibility very seriously. That is such a great business thing. Do you know what I mean? That's such a cool skill to do. And I think a lot of architects have that. They get into the profession not to make billions, but because they want to do something of value that serves people. And so I think what I've just said, all that stuff I've just said, there probably will be more crossover with architects than with the general population, if that's true. So, yeah. We're getting more and more architect turned entrepreneurs. So I always like to. It's a great, as in terms of a cross section of reality. Architect, you do art, you do maths, you do contracts, you do, and ideally you think systems and design. You get a really great skill set. I'd almost tell my kids to do architecture, but only if they were going to leave it after. It's such a tough profession to be in.
Couple more questions I really want to touch on. Of course, the elephant in the room, AI. How are you guys incorporating AI into Giraffe, and what's your perspective of things going on? Obviously, you have a good view of the industry and how architects work. How do you feel it's going to disrupt the industry?
So I use AI to write code. I think if you're using AI to write code, it is the perfect use case for AI. So because the hallucinations are picked up by the machine. So you don't, it's like if the code doesn't run or doesn't do what you expected. So, sorry. Most of the time, like we one of the things we do, right, is Giraffe does the security layer and the authentication, etc. So your application can be vibe coded because it's not going to leak the database. Like I think you see these guys vibe coding, and then like there was that famous like story on LinkedIn, like some guy like deleted his production database, and then the AI was like, "Sorry, I just deleted production. You told me not to, but I did it anyway. It was terrible." And thank you. Yeah. So like limiting the code to be safe as it was, like it's an enclosed script, and then it's very powerful because you can do like that SVG export thing I said. So and then we've got the system that the code can work on. So the AI is writing the code that then is orchestrating the system. That's incredible. The other really good use cases I'm seeing are like the rendering and the up. But I still probably am a procedural man at heart because it's it's predictable, and B, it's super fun. I think architecture, very code driven, very principles driven. There's something wonderful about a mechanical set of principles that solve a problem, which is like the opposite. AI is like very vibey. It's very probabilistic, and sometimes it's, and it rounds the corners and it fudges stuff all the time and things pop in and out. Whereas that's not architecture. That's not design. That's something else. And so, it's still AI. It's just a machine. It's an artificial machine that does something procedurally. I think that's very powerful. And B, I think the actual abstractions, like if you're tracking a bill of quantities, like just track it in a database, and then the only code you have to write is equals some cost, and it's done. Like why are you typing a question? Like just sum it, right? So I think often it can get a little bit, I'm like, why are we doing that? That seems slower. So I see a lot of good use cases, especially those first two, the rendering. I think it really does make nice images, and B, the code. But then I do, obviously we're in the biggest hype bubble of all time. So
yeah. The bubble could burst any moment.
I think I like it kind of has to. Maybe not. Who knows? It's like Bitcoin. Like it could be the NFTs, the apes could be the next best thing, or it could, I don't know.
Yeah, no, but it sounds like it's you personally use it more to empower you. I think the procedural thing is a good point. Like I feel the procedural approach, it didn't really come to the architecture as strong as you think, like following the parametric era. I always saw like in Blender these procedural.
Yeah. It's crazy to me. That's I feel like the architects went down like the parametricism aesthetic direction, and they're like it got all streamlined and swirly. Yeah. And then I think people were like, "What's that about?" Yeah. And I think exactly now the games guys and the Blender people, and there's actually so much wonderful stuff you could do with procedural that makes like classic looking Chipperfield like buildings that would be hugely beneficial to the city. But it's kind of, you're right. It's kind of like a little weird backwater that no one goes to. It's go odd. There. I think people should go there. Yeah.
Because when you connect that to an LLM, to me, that was like, this has to be the rocket ship.
I mean, and someone should do that, build that app, put it on Giraffe, because like I think it would go. I think it would. And yeah.
And what's next for Giraffe? Are you working towards building something new? Anything you want to
we talk about? I would say, like, to be honest, it's more of the same. So we're doubling down on the distribution. So the marketplace aspect where you can publish a script and sort of get it out there. Currently, you can do that, but the process is a little bit, what would I say? Hairy. So making that smooth and like building our content library, that's a big focus at the moment. And really our challenge is just getting people to know about us. I think our technology is so mature and so powerful, but no one, people are like, oh, it's interesting. So and especially that it's depth. So my mission is to try and explain, especially to the architects, that it's worth kicking the tires in a pretty deep way, because it's a profoundly cool tool. Obviously I think that, but I objectively I know it is, and we've got I think my biggest joy is when I see an architect and they'll buy buy it online. I'll never speak to them. We'll never see them. And then they'll post on LinkedIn something they've done with Giraffe, something procedural. And it's just like, I'm like, oh my goodness, that looks good. And I see it out there and I'm like, more people should be doing it. It's, it's epic. So the mission is mainly getting people understanding it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. This podcast will definitely be part of that.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I think you've done really well
you.
with your LinkedIn posts. I'm always seeing cool stuff from you. So that's definitely been great. And hopefully people, I'll put in the description below, the website and everything so people can contact you. Last
please.
question I always want to ask you, where did the name Giraffe come from? Was this like a grasshopper animal thing?
It was. It definitely was. There's two. Yeah, that's right. So there's three. There's two fake reasons and one real reason. So the first fake reason, yes, it definitely was I had humpback and giraffe. We had wobbegong. We were building plugins all the time. Next, it's like a high level view. Like it's you zooming out, right? And then the real reason is I had 5 or 6 like code project names. Like I had orange juice, ice cream, giraffe, and it just stuck. So that's it. We never changed it. So I wish, I kind of like the name, and it is a tradition. It's kind of fun but it certainly doesn't tell you anything about the business. Like it's just like,
yeah, there seems to be, the names are quite an interesting one. It's either like create something that doesn't exist, like a new word.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Conic is a new word as far as I know.
Yeah.
Or a snapshot arcole. I don't know what.
I see arcole's like, okay, at least architecture. Snapshot is kind of like snap and extrude. I get it. It's like I'm like mentally there. Conic, it's conic like geometry. I'm almost there. Giraffe is my favorite. I've got to say Clifton Harness test fit is so good. Test fit. It's test fit. You know what I mean? It's like you get it. It's yeah.
It's an art. I was going to say kangaroo would be suing since you're
just bouncing around. Yeah. It is. Well, now was that guy Aussie? Was he Australian?
I was just thinking that. I don't know.
That was an epic plugin. That was cool. Yeah.
It's not like it's a lesser known one. So
no, exactly. It's like it's a big boy. Yeah.
But you could have. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on. Where's the best way if people want to reach out to you and connect with you? I know you're.
Oh, LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm posting GIFs on LinkedIn, and just reach out to me. That would be and please do. Love chatting to people.
Yeah, I definitely recommend follow Rob on LinkedIn because you post cool GIFs,
cool videos,
Giraffe, and I think it does really. I'm like, wow, I can do all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right, and it's all from the product. It's all real. Like there's no post. I film it and I post it, but there's a lot of different things. I don't know if it makes a coherent narrative, but certainly there's some good GIFs.
Yeah. Well, thanks. All the best, and I'll put all the descriptions, everything in the video below. So those listening, you can check it out. Thank you guys for joining our podcast, and we're going to be continuing the BIM 2.0 theme. We'll get the rest of the crew. I think Hyper will probably be following, and it's nice that we mentioned them as well. So we'll follow on with Andrew and Ian, and we'll see you in the next episode. But Rob, thank you, and excited to see what you guys continue to do.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thank you.
Cheers.